anyone ever heard of Elik Gerson? Abraham Blumstein? Alan Gerson. You want to see the obituary for Alan Gerson in the New York Times and other papers, I think it was last week. Alan Gerson sued the country of Libya and gained some remuneration for the families of the victims of the Lockerbie plane crash. But what struck me in the obituary for Alan Gerson is that he was born Elik Gerson. He came to the United States as a Polish Jewish refugee, and he and his parents came to this country on someone else's papers. Someone else decided not to leave. They came on their visas. And so for the first 7 or so years of his life, he was known as Abraham Blumstein. And his family lived in constant fear of deportation. Finally, they decided that they were safe, and they went back to an Americanized version of their name. So the boy who had been Elik Gerson became Alan Gerson. Story about a name. Last Friday before services, I stood in our large sanctuary with one of our NSCI families. So I have 2 little girls, 8 and 10. And the girls had not been named as babies, and so the parents and I made an opportunity for just them and the grandmother and uncle to stand before the ark and let the girls be blessed and named. And the younger of the girls, both girls chose their names with their parents. And the younger girl said, I chose the name Sapphira, which means sapphire, because a sapphire is beautiful, and I'm beautiful. So sweet, so sweet. And she had a dress that spun around in the bima, so she was really owning that space. Tomorrow, Mia's going to speak about your choice of a Hebrew name as a not so old, well, an older child, but not yet an adult, getting there. Earlier this week, Monday night, in my high school class, another member of our congregation, Harriet Seitler, who some of you know, who was for 25 years Oprah Winfrey's chief marketing officer, spoke about the power of a name in terms of a brand and in terms of values, as she spoke about living her values and working for Oprah and the name and the values that become associated with Oprah's name. I suspect that many of us here, if not all of us, have some stories about our names. Just out of curiosity, how many people here are named for somebody? How many people are not named for somebody? My 8th grade religious school teacher told me I wasn't Jewish because I wasn't named for anything. Yeah, really, right? He's trying to aggravate me. How many people here had some choice in some part of their name? Yeah, so in many different ways. And those are stories. Perhaps people chose their name in conversion. Perhaps you shortened your name. Perhaps you lost a name. Perhaps you legally changed it. I was meeting earlier this week with a group of rabbinic colleagues here, and one of my colleagues explained that he and his wife both had last names that they didn't want to burden their children with. They were like multisyllabic, and they didn't want to hyphenate them, so they chose a new name for their children and for them too. Names impact us. Perhaps our names are so unusual that every time we walk in a room, someone mispronounces it. Anyone here have that? Really? I guess Noel, people could mispronounce. Yeah? Who else? Tripp, how did I mess that up? Oh, Hainsfurther part. Okay. Really, Laura? Oh, they don't get Fligner right? Okay. Who knew? I think, what is it? Oh, man, I'm in trouble now. Okay, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Oh, Batman and Robin? Some of us have such ordinary names that people think we're someone else. I've had a lot of that in my life. People, oh, I know you. No, you don't, but you might. So in our Torah portion this week, Vayishlach, we find Jacob. As you might recall, he had tricked his father and brother, right? He stole the birthright and then the blessing from his brother. He fled because Esau threatened to kill him. And Esau and Jacob are on the cusp of meeting again. And Jacob is, well, he's scared. He doesn't know if Esau's going to forgive him, and he's getting ready. He divides his family, his servants, his animals. He divides everyone in two camps because he wants to keep some safe in case Esau's going to attack him. He gets ready. He's got gifts for his brother, and he goes to sleep. And in his sleep, he encounters a man or a messenger of God, a malach, an angel, or maybe it's God, and wrestles. You may know the story, right? And Jacob, ultimately, that man, as Torah calls it, says to Jacob, "What is your name?" And he says, "Jacob." And the man says, "No, not anymore. You've wrestled with divine beings, and you've earned the name Yisrael," which doesn't necessarily, but in some ways translates to one who wrestles with God. So Jacob's name becomes Yisrael or Israel. By the way, that's why we're called, right, Bnei Yisrael, or the children of Israel, because we're descendants of Jacob. Jacob then turns to the man and says, "Well, what's your name?" Doesn't get an answer. Commentary, there's much commentary on this, but two pieces I lift up for you. Rashi, our 11th, 12th century commentator, cites an older midrash. And looks at the text when Jacob asks, when he's asked, "What is your name?" on this name conversation. And the midrash says, "We have no fixed names. Our names change depending on the service we are commanded to carry out or the errand with which we are charged." I don't mean errand like I'm running to Jewel, but errand like our task, our purpose. Listen to that again. The Midrash says we have no fixed names. Our names change, basically dependent on what our mission is or what our task is, what we're told to do. Another commentator, Sforno, interprets the question similarly, but adds a little and says what our name is, or is what our function is, or our essence. Each of us here has many names. We have the name given to us. Many of us have Hebrew or Yiddish names. Many of us have nicknames. We have the names of friends or roommates or spouses that might not get uttered in public. We have the names perhaps our siblings or children or parents call us, our colleagues. Some of us have titles with that. If you were going to take on a name today that was determined by your essence or your function, your mission, what would it be? That might be an answer you answer inside, but if you have a thought, I invite you to share it, and I'll repeat for the congregation. If you're going to choose a name today determined by your purpose, your essence, your mission, what would it be? A hard question. Gabe? Stand up, would you please?
My parents might find this as a shock, but I've always liked my middle name more than my first name.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time wanted to change my name to David or Robert.
Thank you.
Is that surprising, Mom and Dad?
Okay. Thanks, Gabe. I appreciate that honesty.
That's my dad and Alex.
Let me ask a different question, and there's no pressure to answer, but for those of you who've taken on a name as a child or as an adult, chosen a name, maybe it was a Hebrew name, maybe you changed your English name, would you give us a sentence or two of what that name was, if you feel comfortable? Why you chose it? Would you tell us, Mia? Can I put you on the spot? Yeah, stand up. Mia read a beautiful piece for her bar mitzvah service. Come. Tell us what your Hebrew name is. ahead. I got it.
My Hebrew name is Yitzchaka, which means laughter. And I chose my name not too long ago, and I wanted to honor my aunt and my great-grandma.
I invite you this Shabbat and in the days to come to think about what your name gives you. Perhaps you're named for someone you knew, someone you didn't know. Perhaps you have a nickname or a title or a term of endearment that comes from a relationship, one that you're deeply in or one that you haven't thought about in a long time. I invite you to think about your purpose, your mission, your essence. And think about what your name challenges and inspires you to do. And may we, like our patriarch Jacob, go forward wrestling for the good, for a higher purpose. And may we remember that a Shem Tov, a good name, our reputation, not just the literal name, is in our tradition said to be better than all the wealth in the world, having a good name, a Shem Tov. May we each go forward challenged and inspired to make our names all the better.